Alright, yo, I head to work. We are currently at 100%. We're using organic maps. Yeah. Not 81%. I just got out of my work meeting. Gonna grab some food. But I've been using organic maps, which is open source maps app, which actually doesn't consume like a lot of battery. Like I did an hour drive and 81%. Like it only dropped like 20%. That's after routing to meeting and then to here after meeting and like texting people. Like 20%, it's 10. Started the day at around like 7, so I'm doing pretty good so far. So yeah. So guys, this is my Pixel 9a. I've been using this for the past week for work because I just kind of wanted to have some separation between my work life and my personal life. And I do have Graphene OS on this, so I kind of just wanted to go through my experience with Pixel 9a as a phone and Graphene OS as an operating system. So yeah. The first thing I want to start off is the fact of the Pixel 9a and its design. I really like the design. I think it's very utilitarian. I think it kind of just goes for the opposite of what the iPhone Air would go for. Instead of having the phone thinned out and then the camera bump big, instead the whole phone meets level with the camera bump. And obviously it still has a little bit of a camera bump, but it's insignificant. And I know the Pixel 10a doesn't have that, and it's actually recessed, but I don't think it does that big of a deal. It still lays flat and doesn't move, which is great. I don't know why people want to use their phone while it's flat, I guess. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, but for me, I haven't done that. Yeah, as for the plastic back, you barely even notice that it's a plastic back. You barely even notice. The phone's really light. Although my experience with it is the design isn't as appealing as a modern phone. The reason is because it's a little bit thicker. It's not uncomfortably thick. It's just a little bit thicker where it's not appealing. Something like the iPhone Air, just like a normal iPhone, right? And then the other thing too is the bezels on the A series phones are just a bit thicker, and it kind of just makes the phone less appealing and also less distracting, which is good. I use it for work, so I don't want to be distracted, although I have built the habit of using it for watching YouTube because I have YouTube blocked on my iPhone just so I'm not distracted. But yeah, in terms of like the display or like the specs and whatnot, they're great. The display is great. It gets bright. I think it's like 2700 nits. Like it's really, really bright. And then as for the battery literally lasts all day. It's a 5100 milliamp hour battery, I believe, and it literally lasts all day. I will end the day with about 30% after, like, I wake up at 7, get home at like 5-6 p.m. That's how long it lasts. Like, the battery is great, and I use maps and I use work apps. It lasts all day. Texting people, watching YouTube, etc. So yeah, that's kind of just my experience with the Pixel 9a. I think if you want a phone that is not distracting and has a lot of performance, Pixel 9a is the way to go. The performance is great. It's just the same as any other Pixel 9 phone. It's just the display has bigger bezels and the phone's a little bit thicker. But I think the adjustments that it makes in terms of design bring forth a different type of like experience. So yeah. The next thing I did want to talk about is the Graphene OS experience. I'm an iPhone user, so there's a lot of integration with iPhones like AirDrop or Google or Apple Wallet and just things like that. The Graphene OS, the focus is mainly just, I think integration is more locked down. So apps don't have as much access, and you control that access. And because of that control, and because of like how much control and how much like permissions apps usually have on, let's say, like an iPhone, those apps are able to run. And with Graphene OS, you can't even run like you can't run banking apps. I think it's well known you can't run banking apps. They just crash. That's capital one. It crashes, right? Every other app works fine. I think just banking apps. I don't know what else other types of apps. The only banking app that I've, like money app wise, that I've been able to install is PayPal. Of course, PayPal. Of course it works. But not Cash App. Cash App didn't work either. Apparently you can install web apps, which does work, which I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but yeah. I do have Rise Up VPN set up on the phone, which is, it's great. It's simple, it's free, it's reliable, and it's not like stalking you and just selling your data. You know, it's trusted, and it's open source. As for like the UI on Graphene OS, it's exactly the same as it would be on any phone. Although the one thing, my pet peeve, is the fact that it doesn't come with pre-installed wallpapers. The only wallpaper you get is black. The other thing that you'll notice is the fact that all of the pre-installed apps are black and white. I haven't changed this yet, but that's just something to notice, although it's a privacy phone, so I was trying to be more simple. So, yeah. Apps work fine. With Graphene OS, you do have a lot more control over permissions. One thing I did notice when installing apps and checking permissions is the fact that a lot of apps have access to your sensors. I don't know why they have access to your sensors. Your sensors are literally the things that control the direction of your phone and like the way your phone's moving, which they should not have access to. So it's good to disable that, and I don't like the fact that you can't disable one permission on all apps. You have to do it individually, which sucks. The only things you can do that with is microphone and camera and location. That's it, which I wish you could do other permissions like that. The other thing too is that I do have other profiles set up on here. One just for my main apps, one for work, and then just one for my socials. That way my socials is completely separate from everything else. So that's been great. I like consolidating or like separating certain things. That's kind of why also I got this phone, so I could separate my work life from my personal life. But the next thing I want to talk about is certain apps that I've been using on Graphene OS. Now, I tried using Waze just because this is an Android phone. You can't use Apple Maps. So I tried using Waze. It took up way too much battery life. Google would probably be the same just because it uses live data. So I installed Organic Maps. Organic Maps, it looks like this. It's great. The problem I have is the fact that when you zoom in, you get this. The UI of it is not very appealing, but the features you get is just the same as any other Maps app. Still look up places, get directions. Sometimes the routes are even faster than what something like Apple Maps would have. But you just don't have live traffic data, which is why it doesn't take as much battery life. I can go 100 miles, I mean, not 100 miles, I think it's 50 miles road trip and use less than 10% of battery. That is how battery efficient it is, because it makes you download the maps before using them, which I think is genius. Because when I used Waze, it used like 30% of my battery life in 30 minutes, which was crazy. So, other than that, all open source apps work. I have Proton apps, Bitwarden, YouTube Studio still is. I've had compatibility issues, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work. I think it's just because of Google Play services. It has a hard time running. As for app stores, I do have Aurora Store, and I do have F-Droid. These are open source projects. Aurora Store is pretty much just the Play Store, but you can it's Sandbox. Just the reason I don't use the Sandbox Play Store that comes with is because it does require a Google account. Make a Google account, I don't know any other way, because you have to usually have a phone number. You have to verify phone numbers and all that. You can download a phone number app. So it hasn't really worked for me. Haven't figured another way around it. So I've been using the Aurora Store as my substitute for the Play Store. And then afterward, it's just access to a bunch of open source apps. So, yeah. Yeah, other than that, honestly, the Graphene OS experience has been great. It's been fast. I've had some glitches where I did screenshot, and then the screenshot, the little image of it, when I clicked edit and swiped away, would be stuck there, and the phone actually froze at one point. But they did fix it in a newer update, which is great. So, and I do like the fact what you do have access to cut off, which is location, camera, and microphone, which is great. So, another thing I did want to talk about is actually using a Graphene OS phone. Using a phone like this, it doesn't make you, I've done a little bit of research, and it doesn't necessarily make you invisible. The integration is just a lot less. Something like an Apple phone, apps have a lot of access to a lot of things on your phone. With this, you have more control over that. And that is literally just the point of it, that it's more locked down, and it's more, you have a lot more control. Like something like Linux is similar, for example. You know, like if you do install, if you do go to the internet, if you don't use VPN, it's still gonna have your IP address, or there's still, I'm pretty sure it's gonna recognize what type of phone it is on certain apps, right? But those apps don't have as much permission, so they can't track your location if you don't want them to, you know? They can't, you have more control, but it's not gonna make you invisible, it's just more locked down. So apps don't as much integration, and that's why it comes with the sacrifices of the fact that banking apps don't work, because they need that integration that Graphene OS doesn't have. So if you want a more simple, less in tech, like data integrated experience of phone, then I would definitely get this. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, and have a good day.